Hello, beautiful alchemist. Welcome to Reiki Radio. I am your host, Yolanda. And today we have a flashback of sorts. I want to say I'm really excited to have this conversation because it feels very nostalgic. So I'll start by saying many of you, if you've been listening to Reiki Radio since we started back in 2013, or even if you are new to the podcast but are going back in the archives, you know that I started out initially with a friend of mine, and then I did a long stint of just solo casting, doing episodes by myself. And then there was this period where the interview requests started coming in. And around that time is when I was introduced to who is now one of my teachers, Frans Stiene. And Frans is not only a Reiki teacher, he is also an author. And it was 7 years ago in 2018, again, that I was introduced to his work. And you can go back in the archives and listen to that interview. But at that time, he had written a book called The Inner Heart of Reiki, Rediscovering Your True Self. And that book was so impactful for me at that time in my practice. I had been practicing Reiki at that point for several years. And because of my practice, I was having a lot of different experiences that weren't necessarily spoken of in Reiki classes, or not the ones that I had taken up until that point. And so I even went through this period of wondering if Reiki was what I was even practicing at all. So, in any case, this book cracked the window open on my practice and really helped me understand different aspects of the different practices within the system of Reiki, but more importantly, what it all is really pointing to. And it made a significant shift in my understanding, my relationship to practice, and no longer thinking that I was doing something wrong. So I have such deep gratitude for this book in particular, and for Frans as a teacher. So fast forward, since that interview 7 years ago, Frans has a new edition of this book that is being republished. And by the time this episode comes out, the book may be available. The new edition may be available for you to get your own copy of. I will put the links down in the show description. If it's not already available in your country yet, just put a mark on your calendar. He said it should be the end of August, or sometime in September, and keep checking back. This is definitely one of those books. It doesn't matter your lineage. It doesn't matter if you just started practicing Reiki or have been doing it for decades. This book is one that I really think every practitioner should have in their collection. And even if you're curious about Reiki, it's a wonderful way of having an introduction to the system prior to even learning. So no matter where you are, The Inner Heart of Reiki, Rediscovering Your True Self is incredible, but it is an honor for me to now this time actually know Frans to discuss this book. So instead of having the initial conversation where I was just kind of in awe of the book itself and such deep gratitude for learning of it, this time around, it's an honor because, again, now he's a teacher of mine, and I've learned a lot, not just from his books, but from sitting in his classes and just having these conversations and being able to interview him now several times within this time span. So I hope that you enjoy this conversation. I know that there is a lot that is very insightful. It'll point to a lot of the beauty that are, within the pages of this book. So if you want to learn more about Frans and his work, his website is ihreiki.com. That stands for International House of Reiki.com. The link, of course, is down in the show description. If you want to follow him on Instagram, his handle is at Steine Franz, and I will put that in the show description as well. So I hope you enjoy this beautiful conversation, and I will see you on the other side. Okay, everyone, I'm here with one of my favorites you have to know by now, Frans Stiene. Stiene. I always get confused on that.
I'm still confused.
It's so good to see you. It always is. I mean, you just really are. I even describe you as like just a walking ball of sunshine. So it's really, really, really such an honor to have you here today because what we're going to be talking about is the reprinting of your book, The Inner Heart of Reiki, that will be available soon. But the original is How I Met You.
That's true. Yes.
Yes, yes. And so I was looking it up, and that was 7 years ago, Franz.
Goes so quick, huh?
I
Yeah. Like
know.
time is just like poof. And then suddenly seven
Yeah,
years later.
7 years later. So I was listening. I actually went back and listened to the interview, and I was laughing because I remember the feeling of being so excited to have found this book. And this is genuinely one of those books that I say everyone should read this book.
Yeah.
And I want to just start out by asking again the inspiration behind it because then and even now, for me, it was so different than a lot of other Reiki books that I read. I mean,
Yeah.
you really got to the heart, to the point, and you were speaking about things that as a practitioner I was experiencing, but I never heard anyone talk about. So, what really inspired the Inner Heart of Reiki?
Well, I think this is interesting that you say. Actually, I got a text this morning through Facebook and someone who just read it as well in New Zealand and said, "Oh, thank you. This is something what I was looking for." But
Yes,
and for me, really, first of all, the inspiration was my own personal practice and my own direct experience. So of course, when we treat the system of Reiki on an intellectual way, then most of the time we read books about hands-on healing, maybe a symbol and a mantra, and it's all pretty the same, right? If
yes,
you look at 20 different Reiki books, you probably 19 are very, very similar.
yeah,
And so for me, it was really looking at what is at the heart of the system. Of course, we talk about hands-on healing and the symbols and mantras, etc. But what is really what Mikao is trying to point out?
yes,
In 2012, I started to train with a Japanese priest. And for me, that gave so many insights in where we see the system of Reiki was taken from. And then, of course, he is very much about sit on your butt, do you practice, have the direct experience, etc., etc., etc. I had a teacher before that also who was very much like this in different modalities.
yes,
But yeah, and so when I started to do this training more and more, I could really feel sense in within my own mind, body, and energy.
yep,
And so from that this book arose really. I started actually having some insights in the Reiki precepts, and I started to write it down for myself so that it became clearer for myself. And I go like, this makes a nice blog. And then I kept kind of writing, and I go, actually, this makes a nice book.
yes, yes,
Yeah. So for me, is really my own direct experience, and then from the Japanese viewpoint. And this is exactly also, Yolanda, what I hear a lot where people say, oh, I experience this in my own personal practice, and I think we all do if we go deep enough.
right,
But most Reiki books don't point to this. Why? And I'm not trying to offend anybody, but I
right,
think a lot of times we read these books, what is almost kind of a repeat
yeah,
of something else. It's almost like parroting, and then we miss that very direct, clear instructions. And for me, really good examples, and maybe one day I can write like that. Hopefully, one day, I'm not sure. But if I read like these books of these Zen masters or
mm,
real Tibetan Buddhist teachers. It's so clear, it's so simple, it's so direct, it's so deep. Did you read it and you go, whoa, man, this is what I've been looking for. This is what I've been sensing deep within my own personal practice. And those teachings excite me a lot.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I have to tell you, reading this book, it has that effect. I mean, it really does. And I can completely relate with the person who reached out to you because, again, I mean, I just, my mind was blown. And that's one of the things, it's very common with Reiki, at least here in the West, that it can be for a lot of people this quick certification, right?
Yeah,
So you go, you get certified, and then whatever, it's a quick certification, and you either practice or you don't.
yeah,
And I think that's really, really the key. And the thing that was, again, so brilliant about this book is no one really told me what it would be like to actually practice
yeah,
and not to just practice hands on healing, but to really apply it to myself. And I guess maybe I was lucky in a way that I was going through what I was going through in my life at that time, that I really wanted to practice on myself,
yeah.
even though I wasn't given that direction. But the beauty of, I think, your work overall, and it really highlights in this book too, you make a point of focusing on Mikao Usui and the way he practiced
Yeah.
and really having understanding about that. So is that what even inspired you to then study with your own teacher in Japan that you go to every year? And can you also talk a little bit about why that may be so important for all of us Reiki practitioners to have an understanding of that foundation of how he even got the relationship to Reiki that he did?
Yeah, I mean, the first time this really hit home to me when I was living in the Himalayas in Darjeeling, and we had a Reiki center there for a year, and there's lots of healers around there, either Tibetan, Nepali, Hindu, and they all had one thing in common, a very strict meditation
Yeah,
practice. And so, and I met some of those healers, and then I remember one young guy. He was at that time 21. I was 30, 31, and he was a Tibetan tulku or Tibetan reincarnation. And he said, "Oh, what do you do?" And I said, "Oh, Reiki." And he goes, "What is this?" "Oh, you go with your hands on healing." And he goes, "Oh, like this." And he puts his hands towards me, and I go, "I want what he has."
ah,
But then he told me that he came out of a meditation retreat and he had been there for 3 years. No wonder that whatever emanated from him had a very different quality.
right.
And so then I was intrigued. Why wasn't this taught within the system of Reiki? So in
Yeah,
2001, when I first went to Japan, and then I started to train with different Japanese Reiki teachers, and I still could not find what I was really looking for. I was really looking for a Reiki teacher who pointed me and said, "This is really the meditation practices. It's a very dedicated meditation practices." Because we all know the story of Mikao Usui when he was on Mount Karama for 21 days. I mean, he was not roasting marshmallows the whole day and listening to some Japanese music with
yeah,
his feet in a little bath. He was doing some serious practice.
yeah,
And only after this very serious practice, he had this awakening. And, we in Zen, they call it the great death. And so his Zen teacher, his primitive said, you have to go and experience this great death. Some people think it's actually dying, but it's not true. It's the death of I, me, mine.
right.
So he had this really direct experience. And from that, he created the system of Reiki. And then, of course, it became more and more externalized, unfortunately, when it traveled more to the West and also in Japan, more and more externalized. And so I kept looking either for a priest or a priestess who could actually really guide me into this direct experience. And so then in 2012, I was introduced to this person. And for me, that changed a lot. I mean, when I go there, you start at you wake up at 4 in the morning, then you practice for 3 hours, and it goes on till about midnight. So you
Wow.
sleep 3 hours a night, something like that. And it's full on for 10 days or 7 days, depending on how much I want to be there, how much I want to be challenged.
Yeah.
But this is for me when we really do this, and also when we look at the precepts, when we look at the symbols and mantras, when we look at Reiju, when we look at hands-on healing traditionally, and the meditation practices, then we see these were very serious practices. And like even Mrs. Takada talks about this, that he met traditional Reiki teachers who took years of learning, was interwoven with Japanese spiritual religions, and that it was really about your own inner rediscovery. And now, recently, a wonderful book from 1933 has been translated finally in English. And this also talks about the meditation practices, that it comes from within. And this unfortunately got a little bit lost.
Mm.
And so when we do these practices and we have this very direct experience of that inner luminosity, what Mikao talks about so beautiful, of this really open spaciousness of mind, less grasping, less holding on, then of course your hands-on healing will be very, very different. So even in that book of 1933, they say hands-on healing on other people, and I think also on yourself,
Yeah.
is a byproduct of rediscovering your inner luminosity.
Yes. Well, this is a huge thing. So, two things. One, it's so funny. A lot of times students reflect some essence of their teachers. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And just a few days ago, I had to interview this woman for the summit, and I had never met her before. And turns out she was a student of yours. And I don't think it was in the recording part, but she was talking about how the importance of understanding that too, what you bring up about the whole story of him going up there and going through this, even having the intention of dying, but it not being a physical death.
Yeah.
And a lot of people have that confusion thinking of a physical death rather than a spiritual death.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And I think that's an important thing to highlight because, again, I remember back when I spoke to you for the first time, part of my confusion was there was a lot of talk that made it seem like there was nothing challenging in the healing process. And I was going through some challenges,
Oh,
but at the
absolutely.
same
Same.
time, there was this beauty simultaneously, right? But I say that to say your student she had an essence of you. So it wasn't shocking she was a student of yours. But when we spoke last time as well, you brought this up, the intimacy of finding that inner great bright light.
Yeah.
And I thought that was so incredible again, because it really points to it's not this external thing or even Reiki itself. It's not this external thing we're running around chasing, trying to, I don't know what we may think we're trying to do, but that intimacy of coming into discovering that light within ourselves.
Yeah.
And you speak so beautifully. This is, again, one of the things I fell in love with the book is you break down how every piece within the system is pointing to that.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. So I wanted to ask you a little bit about that. Even you mentioning how Okiden, the hidden teachings, it's pointing to this, what is hidden within us.
Yeah.
Yeah. So could you talk just a little bit about that importance again of our personal practice and how these different elements, precepts, symbols, all of it, what it's really pointing to?
Yeah. For me, they really signpost,
Mm-hmm.
and if we have a signpost and we only going to stare at the signpost and we don't look at where it's pointing at,
Right.
like for example, say I'm going to Amsterdam, then there is actually different kinds of signposts. Some are very small, some are quite big, some have a bike on it, some have a car on it, some are white with red, some are blue with white. So they're different, and
Yes.
yet they're pointing to the same thing, Amsterdam,
Mm.
right? But now we go, oh, but this signpost is very different than this signpost.
Yes.
And we're holding on so tight to the signpost that we don't see anymore where it's pointing at.
Right.
So for example, Shimpadon, what is traditionally called Shimpadon. And in fact, if you translate it, it's the mystery teachings. It's about the mystery of life.
Hmm.
So it doesn't say you become a teacher, it doesn't say anything about that. It's about, again, the mystery of you rediscovering this inner great bright light. And so when we look at the quality of this great bright light, and Mikao Usui described this very wonderful in the precepts. And for example, there is a Zen master, and this is also why I like, I kind of reflect a little bit back to that great death. If
Yes.
you Google great death Zen, you get wonderful teachings on this. You can also find it in Zen books. It's really the I, me, mind, the death of the ego, I, me, mind.
Yeah.
And of course, when it happens, we feel this intimacy, as you were saying, with ourselves, with everything else, because as soon as the I ceases to exist, then there's also no you, then automatically we feel this, right? No
Yes.
separation. And when we feel there's no separation, then automatically I have to be kind because else I'm not kind to myself, right? I have to be kind to you because if I feel this interconnectedness, this intimacy with you or a plant or anything, then I need to be kind to me because as I'm not kind to you, and I need to be kind to you as I'm not kind to me. So
Yes.
it's like this. And then when we look at these symbols and these mantras, they look different, they pronounce different, but yet they point to exactly that same thing. And it is being Reiki. And you were saying actually already, we're searching, we're looking for something. We always seem so busy doing this.
Hmm.
We have to busy channeling, busy giving Reiki, but traditionally it's about being Reiki. And when I kind of like, oh, let me be Reiki, I can finally relax. And when I relax, what happens to your energy, what happens to your mind is very different. And we're constantly busy doing things, right?
Yes. Yes.
And then automatically that frees up a tremendous amount of energy, which is already accessible right now. And in fact, Mikasui, when after his death, there was this organization, Usui Gakai, and it hands out booklets to their students and people who join it. And one of them is an interview with Mikasui, and he writes as an answer that the principal thing is the mindset of Kami and Buddha. And so then we can ask, what is this mindset of Kami and why is it the principal thing? Because when we have no anger, no worry, being grateful, being true to our inner being, and being compassionate, then automatically that energy emanates out very freely. People can see it. There's a joyfulness, there's an openness, there's a willingness, there is a freedom in that, a spiritual freedom. Mikasui we also call this the great bright light. And
Yeah.
what is that? Then automatically, again, no I, me, mine. And the same, when we look, for example, at the first symbol and mantra in Okuden, that symbol traditionally stood for go to Kami. So again, that links in what Mikusui said in one of these booklets. And in the phrase, if you translate it, then it actually means divine spirit. And what is this divine spirit? Is Kami, your inner great bright light, your inner divine being. And when we rediscover it, because most of the time we have such a negative talk towards ourselves,
Yeah.
right? I cannot do this. I'm not good enough. I'm ugly. I'm too short. I'm too tall. All of these things. And of course, when we water that, then we completely forgot this divine inner quality, what we have.
Yes. And this is the thing. You bring up so many things. I'm like, I gotta jot it all down so I don't forget. This reminds me of I was kind of laughing again listening to the interview from 7 years ago. And you're not known for one to, talk about, say, like intuition, these kinds of things. But you mentioned about in the book about people feeling this need to protect themselves
Yeah.
energetically. And you really point to, well, cultivate the great bright light. And you gave the example of the sun and how it is, we can't damage the sunlight. So, in essence, Reiki is teaching you to just be that expression of
Yeah.
that which can't be damaged. And then you don't have to worry about protecting and creating these kinds of barriers. So,
Yeah.
I wanted to just point that out of how incredible it is, again, your teachings and how you share and what you share. Because while we can, continue our education and keep seeking, as a lot of times we do, it's the application, but knowing what we're trying to apply.
Yes. I mean, this is where you hit the hammer on the nail, that knowing how to apply it and why we apply it,
Yes.
right? And so, for example, if I do hands-on healing on someone and I, as the practitioner, feel the need to protect myself,
Mm-hmm.
then in fact, I should ask my client to also protect themselves because I also have still some shit,
Yeah.
right? So I still have my own issues. So now we have two people protecting themselves. But
Right.
normally we don't do this because we only think about I, me, mine. I need to protect myself because the client has some shit. No, I'm a Reiki teacher. I don't have, I've got no shit at all. But that's not true. Let's be, first of all, brutally honest. So
Right.
then I also have to ask my client to protect themselves. Now we have two people protecting themselves. What happens to the energy? First, we're full of worry. And the one of the first precepts is do not worry. So if I already in the system where Reiki teach protection, etc., then I'm actually completely teaching two opposite things. One, I say, do not worry. And then I say, let's protect ourselves. I mean, this is two opposites. How can I justify this in my teachings? Is not possible.
Yeah.
So therefore, we need to be really looking at what is it actually saying here, right? And so therefore, it's so important to again to have this very direct experience, right, of being Reiki. And then we realize, I never, when I first started hands-on healing on people, I did this in India. People had all sorts of diseases, wounds, issues. And it never came up in me to protect myself. I've never been sick from it. I
Yeah.
never been attacked from it. I never had anything. And this is also very important, I think, as a practitioner or energy healer,
Right.
between brackets, because we don't heal anybody.
Yeah.
But is that if I keep saying to myself, I need to protect myself, then I'm actually installing worry, because it comes from worry and fear. Else there is no need to protect myself. So the base of it is fear and worry.
Yes.
And if I do this all the time, then I'm actually just watering fear and worry in my daily life.
Yes.
Now this starts to grow because water grows. So here we have a very big issue. And we can see this in the healing community in general. There's so much fear.
Yeah. There is a lot of fear around it. And, something you keep saying, every time you say hands-on healing, when I direct my hands, and you talk a lot about in the book and in all of your teachings about that interconnectedness, and like if I'm touching you, you're touching me,
Yeah.
there's no separation in that. And so it also brings to mind the what even that, like laying on hands, instead of being so focused on, can I fix this person?
Yeah.
And if our mind is rather just in that illumination of the great bright light, not just within us, but even within and as the person we're laying hands on, then that's where I think the interesting things about the system of Reiki emerge, where you start to
Absolutely.
recognize what you realize through
Yeah.
the practices. Like, really, what do these practices start to show you about existence and function? And
Yeah.
then, as you say, it's helping us to cultivate our own energy, but recognizing what is in the principles, even what the symbols are pointing to. But I think that's maybe where there's a bit of a disconnect, where people have a hard time recognizing that it's not just when we're off in our own little like session or this kind of thing, but then how does that go into real life? How do I
Absolutely.
recognize whatever I recognized in hands-on healing, but then go out walking down the street and still have that realization?
Yeah. I mean, this for me, and Yolanda, I like what you're saying here, because for me, for example, I do 10 treatments, hands-on healing sessions a week, say for
Yeah.
10 hours. Imagine
Yeah.
if for these 10 sessions, so for 10 hours, I see Reiki as something very separate. I see my client as something very separate. So then for 10 hours, I'm actually watering separateness,
Right.
right? And we know this. If we look globally now, where this separateness is being fueled,
Yes.
how not so healthy that is. Let's
Yep.
face it, right? We get less compassion, less kindness, etc. So I don't need to water separateness because that's most of the time my mind state anyway.
Hmm.
But if, for example, for 10 sessions during the week, during my hands-on healing sessions, I can feel this deep interconnectedness, not separation.
Right.
Now I walk into the street and I start to feel more interconnected
Right.
with the people I come in contact with the animals, the trees, everything, anything, a more intimacy. Huh? And of
Yeah.
course, intimacy is not about sex,
Yeah.
it's being intimate, feeling this interconnectedness with people. Then automatically, there is less anger, less worry, more kindness. So Mikasui points this out very simple. The more we feel this interconnectedness, automatically less worry, less anger. But now we think about it differently because we think, oh, when I feel like this, I need to be worried. Why? Because we still focus on I, me, mine.
Hmm.
But if I feel this interconnectedness, automatically I disappear and you disappear. We're still there, but the whole concept of I and me and mine disappears and softens. So suddenly there is a well of this kindness and openness to doesn't matter who. I was walking today in the park with a neighbor and she's interested in Reiki. She's also a massage therapist. And in the park were like maybe about six, I think, homeless people.
Yeah.
And there were, I think, already a little bit drinking. It was uh, 1 p.m. or something. And one looks me in the eye and I'm just looking and was, hey man, how are you today? And you could see just me actually saying, how are you
Acknowledging. Yeah.
today? Instead of going, oh, you're stinky, you're already drinking, you're like this. Hi, the guy goes, oh, thanks, man. Yay. Good luck today. I like you, like this. You get a very different reaction,
Yeah.
right? So automatically, if we can do this for 10 hours during hands-on healing, then your hands-on healing is a training for daily life. And this is very much what Mikasu is pointing out here because he says today, he doesn't say on a massage table or on your meditation cushion. And again, this is very normal. I was just reading this wonderful Zen book by Senrei Suzuki. And again, they speak about today being in the present moment in all we do. That Zen needs to be taken into your daily life. And this
Yeah.
is exactly the same what Mikasui says, into your daily life. So this is why the precepts don't talk about hands-on healing because we cannot take hands-on healing all the time into our daily life. But in our daily life, we can bring less anger, less worry, less fear, being more grateful, being more true to our inner being, and being more compassionate. That is what we can take with us in our daily life.
Yeah.
But we have to train for that.
That's the part. So that's what, again, I'm so
Absolutely.
glad that you not only this emphasis on we have to train for it. Okay, I have to back up and say this. So with the with the precepts, a lot of times we'll hear it, we'll learn it, and we think that's beautiful conceptually, but then people will kind of like suffer in silence of, oh my God, I can't not be angry. Like, how do I do this? And it's interesting because, again, when we practice and apply to ourselves the different aspects within the system, you see how everything is supporting the ability to
Absolutely.
live in the expression of the precepts. And I always think of how, with those teachings of the precepts to, do it from the time we wake to the time we go to bed. It's like it's there's no off switch for that. So
Yeah.
just like you say, it's in our life. But there is a lot of resistance to your point. And so it's coming to mind of maybe if we have more conscious awareness, like what you highlight in this book of what these practices are pointing to, what they can actually support us with, what each practice is illuminating within ourselves, maybe people would have less resistance around, well, I can't not be angry about what I see out there, or I can't not be worried about what's going on with whomever in my life, right? And I think that's an interesting kind of transition too of what can show you that
Hmm.
it's possible to
Yeah.
live the precepts, and it doesn't mean that you don't care.
Absolutely. I mean, you still do care,
Right.
because this is also why we have this compassion and kindness. And compassion and kindness is not a weak kind of cash. Oh, soul, okay. Oh, sometimes we need a little slap to wake up, right?
Yeah.
Really, Franz, wake up of this sleep of ignorance. Wake up.
Yeah.
You're confused. Why you're like this?
Yep.
But this is also, I think, Mikasui, first of all, hey, in Japanese traditions, no matter if you look at Zen or Tendai Buddhism, etc., precepts are an expression of your true nature.
Mm-hmm.
And so the more we lay bare our true nature, then automatically we are the precepts. And so this goes hand in hand. In the beginning, we see it as something very intellectual. And this is why, again, Sundaraya Suzuki has this great teaching. When we observe the precepts without trying to observe the precepts, then we truly observing the precepts.
Mm.
And it's a mind
Yeah.
FUCK. But it's such a great thing because
Yeah.
when we truly observe the precepts, so it's the same. We're not doing kindness, we're being kindness. And if we constantly have to say, oh, now I have to be kind, no, that kindness needs to come from within,
Yeah.
not from now I have to be kind. That is going to be very, very tiring.
Mm-hmm.
But Mikasui realized it's, of course, not that easy. Yeah? Not that easy. So he said, let's also do very specific meditation practices. Like, for example, Joshin Kokyoho, one of the most important meditation practices within the system of Reiki. We go within our body, grounding, and then we feel this open spaciousness.
Yeah.
So Joshin means pure mind, and Kokyoho, breathing in and out. So the whole thing is, through our in and out breath, we realize that our essence is pure already. What is this pure essence? No anger, no worry, being grateful, being true to our inner being, and being compassionate. What is this pure essence? Your great bright light. What is this pure essence? Kami, your Buddha nature. So now we can see how they're all point to one and the same thing, right? So but we all know that it's sometimes very difficult. So we have to keep practicing our daily practice. But if we don't do the practice correctly, then we also don't get the correct result.
Yes.
So we also have to make sure that we practice correctly to get the correct result. I was talking the other day to a friend of mine. She was a bit curious about it. She was actually curious about it because she had a friend who was going through a bit of a difficult time. And I said, it's a little bit like baking. If I bake, then there is a certain recipe,
Mm-hmm.
right? And a certain order to the whole thing. If I don't follow the recipe correctly or the order correctly, then I cannot eat the bread. So I spend 2 hours baking bread, and in the end, I don't have the desired result. So it needs to be correctly,
Right.
right? If
Hmm.
the oven is not on the right temperature, too low or too hot, again, I cannot eat the bread. So
Yeah.
2, 3 hours, no correct result. So it Mikasui, and with all of these meditation practices and all these Zen teachers and Tenda Buddhist teachers and Shugendo teachers say exactly the same thing. Make sure that you practice correctly to get the correct result. So there is a
Yeah.
certain recipe to it. But if we don't follow that certain recipe, we might be doing these practices for 10, 12, 30 years, and we say, well, what Frans writes in the Inner Heart of Reiki, I've never experienced. But yeah, but maybe you haven't really followed the right recipe,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
And
No.
so this is so important.
Yeah.
For example, and I don't want to offend anybody, but it's so we do hands-on healing. We put our hands on ourselves and we go, and then we sleep. And then the next morning we say, wow, I had a great hands-on healing session last night. No, let's be honest. You were sleeping,
Yeah.
right? Traditionally, hands-on healing was an act of meditation practices where you stay focused on the hands, not being distracted, not labeling, distinguishing, analyzing what you feel or experience. But now we do it like this, and then we fall asleep, and then we think we've been practicing. Of course, then we do not get the desired result.
Yes.
It's actually super simple.
Well, again, you bring up so many things. My mind's just going bow, bow, bow. Okay. So, one of the things that's coming to mind is the brilliance of this title, really, The Inner Heart of Reiki, but rediscovering your true self. And the reason it's coming to mind is because part of the confusion for me in the beginning, and I'm not talking like, oh, my first month with Reiki, I'm talking a few years of practicing. I was like,
Yeah,
well, maybe I don't know what Reiki is, right? But I didn't. I
yeah,
really didn't know what, I was using the ingredients, so to speak, but I didn't know what the end result really was.
yeah,
I didn't know that this was a system to help me rediscover myself and my true nature. I didn't know that's what it
yeah,
was. And so I was practicing and practicing. And although I had experiences of feeling good, I noticed that I was changing. I didn't know that that was within the point of what I was trying to do. I didn't know I was polishing my diamonds, so to speak, right?
yeah,
I didn't know. And so to really have, again, come across your work and finally have that knowing of, oh, this is what this system is. It's not just
absolutely.
laying hands. And for that matter, my idea of laying hands is not just what I think that is. There was just so
Yeah,
so much that started cracking open. And so it's funny because a lot of what you're talking about too, it reminds me of how there really is I don't know how else to describe it, but this like technology like within the essence of our practice. And I think of how when I come back from like one of your classes, say, and people around me will be like, wow, you seem different. You feel you look different, right?
yeah,
And I'm like, well, yeah, I was with Franz for 5 days. Like we're meditating, chanting, doing all the things. There's so much fun. But that part of, again, how do we sustain this? How do we keep it going with
yeah,
the understanding of what we're doing in the first place? But the other thing you bring up, Franz, is this literally just happened the other day. I was interviewed, and the woman very honestly said, I've gone to different classes and things, and people have criticisms about Reiki of like,
mm,
oh, basically what came through is there's a lot of people who don't know what it is. So, like, yes, I
yeah,
mean, of course, it would be easy to criticize one if you haven't had direct experience, but also if we don't really understand what it is and what the system is helping us to do. Again, it's just I appreciate so much that your work dissolves that confusion.
Yeah, I think we need, first of all, always, in anything we do, there needs to be a clarity of why we practice and how we practice.
Right.
Now, if we drive a car, if I don't know why I'm driving a car, I might hop in a car and drive circles.
Right,
And go,
right.
wow, I paid 20,000 for this and might have just walked circles, right? So we need to know why the car brings us from A to B. We
Yes.
also have lots of different brands and colors and shapes of cars,
Mhm.
but the concept is really the car drives from A to B. Very
Yes.
simple.
Yeah.
So it's the same. We have different symbols and mantras, different techniques, but they just there to help you to drive from A to B,
Yes.
from not knowing your true self to knowing your true self. And so if we drive a car, then we first of all know why, then we need to know how to drive it because else I don't arrive at B.
Hmm.
And then we need to keep driving until we arrive at B and not stop halfway and go like, well, this is quite nice. That's it. So Mikasui says, first of all, already in Reiki 1, we learned the precept. So he says, this is the beginning, but this is also the end, right? It's
Yeah.
almost like a Zen circle. Now, of course, there is no end, but
Yeah.
this is the outcome of the system of Reiki that we can lead a life of no anger, no worry, being grateful, being true to our being, and being compassionate and kind. Now, imagine if today everybody in the world, every single human being decides today, from today on, I'm going to be kind.
Ugh.
No more wars, no more poverty, etc.
Yeah.
Problem solved.
Yeah.
Today, today, if every single person will decide this today,
Hmm.
then we have world peace. No more poverty, no more anything.
Yes.
But we find it very difficult. Why? Because, oh, but this is mine. This is my country. This is my water. This is my food. What is an illusion? It doesn't exist, really. These
Yeah.
are all created in our own crazy mind.
Yeah.
So, therefore, we have to keep practicing until one day, here is my true self. Right? So, here is my inner luminosity. Here is my no more anger, no more worry. I'm being pushed. I'm being this happens, and I can stay calm. Doesn't mean I'm being pushed over. This is something very different. And I have this being grateful and I become compassionate. A compassion what doesn't change according to circumstances.
Right.
Then automatically we live a life of being Reiki.
Yeah. And one of the things too that comes across in your teachings that I think is also very important, not always obvious to all of us because we have our conditions, ideas, stories, attachments, the list of human experience, right? But with that compassion that Reiki points to again and again and again for ourselves and all others, making sure that we understand that it's unconditional.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we can't have conditions on who deserves the compassion. Right, right, right. You know, and we do that and we get so tied to our justifications. But if we really think about what would be the effectiveness of that, we're still drawing lines in the sand.
Absolutely. I mean, we all still make mistakes. We all
Hmm.
still practicing. So
Yeah.
sometimes we do say something to someone or we do some whatever.
Yeah.
But if we then can still maintain this openness and kindness and this again, you mentioned the sun. So
Yeah.
in the Reiki 3 symbol and mantra, we see the sun and the moon. The sun doesn't make any distinction. It doesn't say, oh, you just don't deserve my rays and you only get 2 rays and you might get 5. No, the sun is just shining.
Yeah.
So this is that unconditional shining light. And if we look at the word Reiki, in the word Rei, we see the kanji of rain. And this is the rain also doesn't say, well, that tree over there was a little bit nasty to me last week and didn't like the rain, so I'm not going to rain on that tree. No, of course, the rain is going to rain unconditionally.
Yeah.
And so in these methods and these tools Mikasui put within his system, there's lots of hidden teachings. But
Yeah.
if we stay on the surface, so if we just practice surfacely and we don't go to the inner heart of it,
Hmm.
then we don't see this. But if we look at the inner heart of the word Rei, for example, unconditional Rei, unconditional Reiki, unconditional rain, unconditional love, not judgment. You need this and you need that and you need this and you don't get anything because you either look like this or you behave like this, or this is not what Mikasui had.
Yeah.
Show compassion to yourself and others. And on a deeper level, also show compassion to yourself and others, is this interconnectedness or non-duality.
Yeah. Yeah. I was just thinking when you're saying that, like, wow, again, it's incredible to me that we had this conversation about this book and how changing it. Well, oh, wow, I feel like I'm about to cry. Not like, like I feel my eyes watering, but I mean, really, truly, friends, I've told you this many times, but I feel like I did, sometimes you're like, I can't convey it through words, but the appreciation I have for having found you, this book specifically, but then right after this, then I came every time, every year you came to LA, I was there. I was there, except for the little interruption during the pandemic. I was like, Franz is coming. I'm off to LA. Yeah. And it has been such a gift to my practice. And this is why I really do. I share with anyone who asks, I'm like, my teacher is Franz and this is his work and these are his books. And one of the things I love about this book is it really is like sitting in class with you
Yeah,
because you do, again, really break down different aspects woven all throughout the system, but then give this clarity like you've done in this conversation that I think is just invaluable to anyone who already is practicing. It doesn't matter if it's been a day or 20 years, however long you've been practicing, I can't even describe the way
yeah,
that this book will speak to you. And even if you're curious about Reiki, I think it's a beautiful book to read because then you already come in with an understanding of the potential of how it can support you.
yeah.
Even if your goal is to support others, you still can't take you out of that equation.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And so before I get all emotional over here, one of the last thing, because I know we're about to wrap it up.
Doesn't
Um,
matter.
I do want to ask you about senmitsu because that was also an interesting concept within the system that I hadn't learned in other classes prior to training with you. And I think that also is a beautiful way of pointing to what the system is pointing to. So could you
Yeah.
tell everyone a little bit about that?
Yeah, in reality, when we look again deeper into the precepts, we see
Yeah.
Sanmitsu, and that is mind, body, speech. So speech traditionally also is breath or energy. So this is the same thing. So we have mind, body, speech. We all have that. We have a body, we have a mind, we have speech or energy or breath.
Mhm.
And they need to be in harmony. Because, for example, my body is here, my breath is here, not in the past, not in the future. We don't have a past breath or a future breath. Where I'm also my body is, but my mind most of the time is in the future or in the past,
Mhm.
right? So if I focus during these meditation practice like Joshin Kokuyo on my breath, then I'm staying more present.
Yeah.
Then, of course, less anger and worry. If I focus on my body during hands-on healing, not if I fall asleep, because then my mind, again, dreams about all sorts of things, is very distracted. But if I make this my meditation practice and I focus on where I'm placing my hands without getting caught up in what I feel and sense, then I'm right here. So
Yeah.
now mind, body, breath starts to be in harmony.
Right.
And the more we have this, then of course life becomes very easy. We see this too. Huh? If my mind is worried, then my breath changes. My breath is up here, very shallow. Then when my breath is up here, my mind is distracted. This has all problems on lots of bodily functions.
Yes.
We might get constipated in the lower part. Everything is tight. Why? Because we're only breathing up here. We start to feel very unbalanced, etc., etc., etc. So therefore, again, when we look at the whole system of Reiki, we see there's mind body breath or mind body speech or mind body energy elements in any kind of practice. For example, if I do hands on healing and I put my hands on someone else and my body is just like, yeah, whatever. My mind is distracted, thinks about going for a coffee later on. What happens to your energy is very sloppy,
Yeah.
right? So we can see this already. But if I'm focused with my hands on healing, with my mind, with my breath, really grounded and centered, then automatically I can really start to see what is right here. And right here, ah, I am being Reiki. The light is already here. I don't
Yeah.
have to call it in from somewhere over there. I'm it already. But most of the time we don't see it because we're too distracted.
Yes. Yeah. No, it's so true. And again, it's one of those things. Reading the book, I think, again, it's very clear that all of the elements within the system are pointing to the same thing. But to really understand the deeper meanings within these teachings and even some of the concepts that pour into where the different aspects of the teachings come from make a world of difference in our practice. And I
Absolutely.
just want to say for anyone listening, because I know even my experience at the very beginning, I was really trying hard. I was
Yeah.
trying hard to do Reiki, to do it right, to, all the things. And I think it's important for people to recognize that it's really, there's such a difference in becoming an observer within your practice, being soft
Yeah.
in your practice, not chasing
Yeah.
the great bright light or chasing trying to perfect anything, but rather just being very soft and observing and witnessing your experience along the way. But the other thing I want to point out that's helpful for us, again, no matter if you just started practicing or have been doing it for years, having the direct experience and sometimes doing that not just by ourselves but in community or having guidance of a teacher. So I bring that up to say people do have opportunities to work with you and have direct guidance around some of these concepts, especially if they aren't things that they fully understand yet. So, could you tell everyone some different ways that we can work with you, like the online events that you have? And yeah,
Yeah. So yeah, I do online events. I don't teach Reiki 1, 2, or 3
right. No,
online. That is not my thing. For some
yeah,
people that is, and that's okay. Um, but I do offer support for the students
hmm,
online. I've been doing this for a long, long time already, way before COVID.
yeah,
We also have a virtual practice evening twice a month. Then I just got a booking an hour ago. Before I started it, I looked on my inbox of this woman who's practicing Reiki and she wants an online video session. So do those kind of elements. Then I like these. For me, this is also already teaching and sharing and
yes,
being and Reiki and all of these kind of things. And then,
yeah,
of course, the in-person courses. I teach retreats, 2 days, 3 days, 4 day retreats, Reiki 1, 2, and 3 classes all
yes,
over the world. And yeah, and I think also sometimes I do get emails from people who ask questions. And I think that's also great.
yeah,
And I think also as a teacher, when we start to teach, then in fact we have a responsibility not just to say, okay, here's the class and I'll bugger off. Now, actually, that we hold hands together, no matter if that's for 10 years or for 20 years or the rest of our life, and that we walk that path together. I think this is very important.
yeah. I mean, listen, you've been in my life now since 2018. Again,
We're
I
almost
mean,
married.
no, seriously. Well, I think that, some states legally we already are. But yeah, but it really is. It's been very helpful in my path, I can say, from my personal experience, staying connected with your teacher, resitting, but practicing really
Yeah,
truly and applying in between. And even the funny thing is about the books, they're so great because we can always go back to them, you know?
absolutely.
And
Yeah,
like I said, yes, I had the original version of this book, but when I got the new version, the new copy, and I was looking just at what is in the book again. And I was like, this, it is. It's like a class in the book, but it's so great when you can re explore certain concepts and teachings. And it's like
Yeah,
you just keep expanding on what you thought you knew. And then because of where you are, you start to understand things differently. And so I love
absolutely.
coming back.
Yeah. Yeah, again, I see you doing this circle, right? Is
Yes.
this circle? And we keep, I've got a bookshelf here, and occasionally the other day I picked out a book what I really like, also by a Zen teacher. And when you read it, it's almost like this guy is talking about the system of Reiki. Of course,
Yeah.
he's not, but
Right.
very similar, actually, philosophy, ideas about light, about being, about the precepts,
Mhm.
about anyway. And I marked these books, and I was reading it. And I'm like, oh yeah, why didn't I mark this? Right, this is important. I didn't
Yes.
see it the first time, so sometimes I read this book two, three, four, five times to really soak in. Because also, sometimes we like this, we don't read it, we don't see it. Sometimes we have to hear it 20, 30, 40, 50
Yeah.
times. One Zen master, and he's and actually also another Buddhist teacher, Tibetan Buddhist teacher I like. They're both very similar, and they go like, yeah, we just have to say it again and again and again, because sometimes people are deaf, they don't want to hear it, they're
Yeah.
not ready to hear it. And I have the same thing with certain things, and you
Mhm.
just keep, but we have to open up, right? To receive knowledge or wisdom or insights, we have to open up. And each
Yeah.
time that we practice, we feel more open, more spacious. We go like, oh, this is actually who I am. And then when we read these books, then we get a very inner experience. So
Yeah.
this is again, we can read the precepts on a surface level, and then we say it means this, this, and this, and this, but that's just surface level. We just read the words. But on the inner level, I mean, there's so much in the precepts. So, for example, when we think about right action or right livelihood or right speech, a very traditional Buddhist concept, and some teachers say, oh, but that's not the precepts. Yeah, if you dive
Yes.
deep, it is, because if I am not angry, then of course my speech will be different, my actions will
Yeah.
be different, the way I live my life will be different. If I'm less worried, then my speech will be different, my action will be different, my life will be different. So of course it's there, but we have to dive in it. This is the inner heart. And it's so important, no matter if we practice anything, yoga, tai chi, qigong, the system of Reiki, Buddhism, Christianity, doesn't matter. We have to go to the heart of the matter.
Yeah. Well, I love that you say this too, because I think it points to our practice of not being too rigid. And it comes to mind with a lot of teachers and practitioners. Sometimes we get so locked in and thinking we know, like we
Yeah,
know absolutely, or the right way, or whatever it may be. And I think it's beneficial for all of us to have that, like you always say, the beginner's mind, but
yeah,
keeping that openness and willingness to continue to expand. Like I always think of it as a way of like, wow, this is how I understand something now. But
yeah.
I do understand that later I may understand it
It's
differently or more
very different.
expansively. Yeah. And so even
Absolutely.
reading this book again, I'm like, I can't remember what I thought other than I know what my experience was 7 years ago when I first read it, right?
Yeah.
But this time reading it, it was just like, oh, wow, a totally different experience, even in relationship to my own practice and how, like, wherever I am on my path right now. And I think that's one of the things that fascinates me about life, this work, even having the joy of being on this planet is because we can't even imagine how much we're going to keep expanding and understanding and
Yeah.
becoming more appreciative of different aspects of our existence and life that we just saw and understood so differently before.
I
That's
think
really what
so.
I love. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think in a way we see this already. Yeah? But for that, again, as you say, we need to keep beginner's mind, not
Yes.
just within the system of Reiki, but in
Yeah.
life.
Yes.
Like not so long ago, I wanted to go with a friend to this coffee place. I said, let's go there. And so, because France, I've been there once. I didn't like it. I said, let's try it again. And then after she tried again. So actually this was fun. Very different stuff. They now are very different because they just opened up when she went. But if we don't have that beginner's mind,
Yeah.
then we might not go there again. Then we
Yeah.
might actually say it was not so good. But actually maybe that's not the truth. But this is the same in a relationship with the person, beginner's mind.
Yeah.
Every time we feel this sense. We wake up in the morning, ultimately,
Yeah.
beginner's mind with my partner, with whatever happens in your daily life, beginner's mind.
Yeah.
Then it's super fresh because most of the time we wake up and we rely on past experiences. But
Mhm.
these past experiences are past, they're not fresh. Right? It's actually building a daily life on something what is a little bit stinky and rotten again because it's past,
Yeah.
when we store it and we don't store it properly, it starts to stink a little bit, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But if we keep it fresh, beginner's mind, fresh mind, then the day can start in a very different way.
It's listening to you say it, it reminds me of this feeling of freedom. And we often
Yeah,
say expansiveness that comes with that. Because just to your point, if we let go of thinking that something is going to be based on our history, and again, all of the attachments and stories that we have, it can feel very congested. It makes us so tight. But with this like freedom of, beginner's mind, who knows? Let's see something new. Even just the thought of that feels very expansive. And it's funny because it
absolutely.
also reminds me of looking at you on social media where I'm like, he's just like living and enjoying life. Yeah. So I
Yeah.
think that's the beauty of it too. Really recognizing how all of this helps to expand our mind, our life experience, and
Yeah.
knowing that it's not separate from our daily life.
Well, actually, I had a great example today because I went for a walk and a coffee with a newish friend.
Hmm.
And so I don't know her that well. Her and her husband live here in my tower building, and we only recently met. And then I said, well, why don't you come to my birthday party? They went, and it was nice. They liked it. And then turned out she had a massage business for a long time. She's kind of now semi-retired and etc.
Yeah.
And so we were walking through town. She's been living here for many years already. And we're walking, and then this person, hey, Frans, how are you? Hi, 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 hi. And we have a coffee. Oh, Frans, what would you like? It's because, Frans, how do these people know you? And they're all come and have say a little thing. I said, just shine your light.
Yeah.
Then already we practicing being kind, open, generous, loving, caring in our daily life.
Hmm.
This is our practice. It's not just hands-on healing. Hands-on healing is super, super limited,
Yeah.
right? Because I cannot walk around like this the whole day. I have to carry my shopping bag. I have to drive the car. I have to do whatever. I can also not touch everybody in the street. I get arrested. But
Yeah.
we can shine this light of love and compassion in all we do. And for me, this is as much as possible, sometimes also difficult, but then we just keep practicing, practicing again and again. Then the next day we start afresh. Next day we start afresh. Next day we wake up, beginner's mind. Each day, yesterday is yesterday, it's not today. So let's start afresh. And what do we start with afresh? With this great bright light. I start with this already in Reiki 1. I said, let's wake up if you can in the morning instead of saying, oh, I don't feel well, I'm unhappy, blah, blah, blah. If you water that, that grows.
Hmm.
So even if your life is like that and you feel like that, then try as much as possible. Wake up. Where is my light? Where is my luminosity? I'm grateful that I'm breathing today.
Hmm.
I'm grateful that I have some food. I'm grateful that I have a roof. I'm grateful that there is running water. Running water is not necessarily a given thing.
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So there's a lot of things what we can be grateful for. First of all, that we're alive, that we wake up in the morning. And if we start to do this, then we give the right thing water, because what we give water grows. So here already we can see how beneficial it is if we just start to focus. Okay, where is this open, playful luminosity
Yeah.
within my life? Even that maybe I had a shitty night, I couldn't sleep or whatever, or maybe someone said something to me. Then the next day, the gain is mine. I wake up afresh.
Yeah. It's interesting because this is also, I think, one of those things that people wouldn't necessarily associate with Reiki.
Yeah,
But to your point, it reminds me of even the ways that I identified myself prior. So before, like, I was shy, I was introverted, I was all of these things. I didn't want to interact with people, right? And
yeah,
now, without even trying, I am much more open. I'm
yeah,
okay with connection. I'm not afraid of interacting with people. And like what we were speaking about earlier, I'm not afraid of other people's energy. And it's made such a difference in my life
of
experience,
course.
not
Yeah,
just knowing myself differently, but now, I mean, it blows my mind how many strangers I talk to within a week, and I never would have allowed
yeah,
myself that before. So yeah, I always think of it too as it definitely has helped me with re-identifying myself, understanding life differently,
yeah,
understanding the human experience differently. And I can't thank you enough again for, how much I have learned and continue to learn from you. Just it's unbelievable. So one of the things about the book though, Franz, it's when does this version come out? When can we support and get the new
yeah.
copy?
Soon. It depends which country you live in because
Ah,
that's a bit tricky. So
yeah.
from the end of August to I think about end September,
Okay. So put this on your like list,
shopping list.
shopping list. Yeah. Mark it on your calendar, end of September, August, and look for this cover. It's black and gold. It is this one, the new edition. And the only reason I'm stressing that is because, you know, this this realm is different. It's not a traditional type of, work in these things. And like for me personally, I really am appreciative of any opportunity I have to support the work of people who are doing so much
Yeah,
to support us in our work. And so, I really think it's a gift. And yeah, even if you have the original or you don't have it yet, wait for the black and gold, the Inner Heart of Reiki. I will post a picture of it. And of course, the links will be below. But I also wanted to ask you, I know you have some in person, you have Berlin and Australia coming up soon, and you have no UK in November. How can people register for your classes?
yeah, so you can go to the website ihreiki.com, and it stands ultimately for the International House of Reiki. So yeah, look me up on Facebook or Instagram, either International House of Reiki or Frans Stiene. I don't know, sometimes
No, it's
know
Stina
to pronounce
Franz.
it either.
Yeah, it's at Stina Franz. That's who you are on Instagram.
Something like that. Yeah. So yes.
That's so funny. Okay, so the book will be out soon. Again, I'm going to put the link for that. And I obviously, of course, will put all of the ways to connect with you. I have to say, this has been incredible, just like a full circle moment. Because when we met, you weren't my teacher. I mean, I read this book and was like, who is this person?
This crazy guy.
Yes. And thankfully for me, you were coming to LA soon after, and I was there.
Yeah.
But it really is. It's such a joy to share space with you, to learn with you, to, read your books and all of these things. But I thank you for even showing up. You're so down to earth. I mean, I don't know how else to say it, but I really appreciate that you're always willing to come and share, and really all that you do of
Thank you.
exposing your path to help us on
Yeah.
ours. Yeah. Thank you,
Thank you.
Franz.
Thanks. Thank you for interviewing. Always great. Always good to talk to you. I always enjoy it.
Yeah.
And it's also good that, we have these great laughter together. I
Yeah.
think this is also so important. The spiritual practice is nothing about being serious, actually. It's about that light, that movement, that openness. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you are an expression of that. So for
You too.
everyone, be sure to connect with Franz. Everything is down in the show description, and we'll see all of you soon. Okay, beautiful alchemist. Before we go, I just want to say a special thank you again to Franz. Thank you for your work. Thank you for your lightness of heart. And, you know, I'm sure so many listening, if we've had an opportunity to work with you or just see you like this in interviews or sit with you in class, people only have the most wonderful things to say about you. And again, I really appreciate the work that you do and what you share with the world. So thank you for coming on Reiki Radio again to celebrate the republishing of the Inner Heart of Reiki, Rediscovering Your True Self. For all of you listening, I can't thank you enough for being here, for being part of the community. Again, just to even think that this has been going on since 2013, sometimes it blows my mind. The anniversary of Reiki Radio is coming up just next month. So I do want to acknowledge my deepest gratitude for those of you who have listened for years. And even if you're new, I appreciate you being new here and part of the community. I love getting emails of people who are just finding the podcast and going back into the archives. That's incredible to me. I'm so thankful for the stories that are shared with me through email or social media. I also want to say, thank you for sharing Reiki Radio with your communities, your students, your friends, your Reiki circles. It really has helped me stay committed to the podcast all of these years, and it has also helped us having all of these incredible teachers and practitioners come and share their work with us so that we can all learn in this format. So thank you all again just for your presence. And thank you again to Franz for sharing your work as you do. I hope you all have an incredible week. And remember to always journey in love.